I mean, it's kind of a weird question.
Right.
I just, as somebody who hasn't studied the Library of Congress in the past, I just have this, general concept of Library of Congress as the central repository of all, American knowledge. So
right.
I was wondering if there were some support mechanisms to link to other repositories so that you don't have to handle everything.
I'm sure that is a twinkle in somebody's eye, but we haven't gotten there yet. Hopefully at some point we would be able to. The reason that we are the repository for a lot of American knowledge is because we are the home of the copyright office, and so a lot of our collections are copyright deposits, where you had to give 2 copies of your item to the copyright office, and one of those copies comes to the library collection. So the problem with video games is that you don't have to give a copy of your video game as your copyright deposit. You only have to give like an example of gameplay and some of the code, like the first and last page of code or something, which with a video game is fairly useless. And so that might be all that we have as a copyright deposit. So we don't have a full collection of American copyrighted video games because we haven't required it.
Do you have, do you know why, or do you have a personal inclination as to why it's different for software?
I'm going to bet it's because nobody on the Hill understands video game software. Because things that are digital in nature have always lagged behind in the copyright process and various other legislative processes, and this is no exception.
And things that are pop culture. Part of my pitch as I describe this project to people is that every time a new form of pop entertainment has come along, as a society, we have done a miserable job of preserving it until academia decides that it's achieved some level of legitimacy where we can start looking at it. So we've already lost a whole lot of early game information. And it's a matter of legitimacy of pop culture. And eventually we regret not having done it, but it's a cycle we will continue to repeat over and over and over again.
Right. And with some pressure and stuff, then the laws could catch up. I can't give that pressure as a staff person, but academia definitely could, and efforts like yours probably could.
Yeah. I appreciate I'll take that as a vote of confidence. I appreciate it. Let me flip through my documents here again real fast to make sure. Let's see. So you've talked about some of the metadata that you're putting in as you enter the information. One of our questions here is about important features of the artifacts. And it sounds like that set of metadata might cover that. What's important about the object, both generally and specifically internally at the Library of Congress. Are there things that you think should be recorded? I also ask a lot of idealized system questions. Are there things that you think should be recorded that the system doesn't manage right now?
I'm not sure. Maybe. Well, one thing that we don't capture right now because we can't really work on them are video game media that require a specific console. So I did some testing early on to see what my equipment could support, and really it's a lot of just PC-based games, some Mac-based games.
It's okay.
And so,
I'm sorry, 1 second.
That's okay.
Our Amanda, go ahead and wave.
Hi, sorry.
Hi.
This is Kelsey. She's our.
No, I'm Kylie.
I keep doing that. We have Kylie and Kelsey. This is Kylie. She's our IMLS master's student that's helping us with the project. You're welcome to come in.
I was just going to say hi. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were on a call.
That's okay.
Talk later.
I'll be done at noon.
Okay.
All right.
Have a great day. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you for that. For that little, she heard my pitch at the beginning of the year about the project, and she's been helping us the whole time. And she has sat in on several of our interviews, so I thought she might be, just running late and trying to participate. But
Right.
Just trying to be social. But it's fantastic to have master students helping us with this work. So you were saying, are you recording if you have a game that is supposed to run on an Xbox, it's part of the metadata that it was for the Xbox platform?
If we could support Xbox games, which I did test to see if we could, and we can't right now. But yes, that would be the kind of metadata that I would want to capture. So that you would need a specific console, a specific piece of hardware in order to play the original, or to play even the digital copy. But right now we can't support those. I tried, I did a whole bunch of tests. I bought a bunch of games from home to see if we could support it, and we couldn't support Xbox 360, Xbox One, Wii U, or any sort of like console-based optical media, which I was really disappointed in because I thought that it was optical, so maybe we could. But
so do you still do a bit for bit, or can you not even?
We can't even preserve those at the moment. So eventually, once we make it past all the PC games, the Mac games, anything that's supposed to be played on a desktop computer, then hopefully we can ask for additional hardware and software in order to support those games, but we can't right now.
That's interesting. And so really with that software, all you have are the video components of gameplay, which I understand that was part of the submission, right? So many minutes of video of gameplay.
Yeah, if we have that. It might be just
code, and that's
it can be just like a piece of paper that has the first and last parts of first and last pieces of the code, and then like a description, like a literal written description of gameplay. It doesn't even have to be a video. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It's frustrating is what it is.
Do they tend to submit like back cover copy, or is it something original that they write for you, generally speaking?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. Now I feel like I should find a whole bunch of these submissions and track back and see what they thought was important.
You probably could, yeah.
Yeah, I would also like to ask these people making these submissions if they would prefer if they wanted to submit full versions of the games for these applications, could they, or would the application be rejected if they oversubmit? I
bet they could. I mean,
okay.
We take lots and lots and lots of different sorts of submissions for copyright. I know that there's like 4K versions of movies that are copyright deposits, and there's, we got home videos and other collections. So it depends. But I'm sure that they would take it. But then you also have to ask the question, like, what version of the game, and do they include DLC? Do they include any patches? Like, what gets preserved as part of the copyright deposit and what gets preserved later? And how do we support that versioning? And I'm sure that, again, other people, maybe in MBRS, have talked about that, those issues, but that's not my department's concern right now.
Sure. It is a personal question. Are you actually, are you a game player outside of work, or is this?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's good to know. You seem to have all of the jargon exactly right. So, right. So I'm
giant video game nerd.
Fantastic. This is a different project I'm working on. I'm just wondering how you refer to yourself in terms of being a game player. Do you call yourself a gamer, or is there some other term you use, or do you usually not state that?
I have referred to myself as a gamer, and I probably would, yes.
Okay. I'm going to digress and waste a minute of your time. My personal work here is on identity and software creation.
Okay.
And so I'm looking at whether or not, basically I'm using games as a highly salient context, since game companies tend to hire gamers to make games, to look
Sure.
at the impacts of identifying with what you're creating on the process of making games. So part of my work necessarily is trying to figure out what it means to these people to be gamers and to be software developers, and how those identities become salient on the job, and how that affects the way that the software is made. I don't know if that made any sense at all. Because
a little bit, yeah.
Okay. So as we're talking